Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to crumble!
I'm Joshua Kemble, and welcome to Joshua Kemble's Livestream. I've been a freelance illustrator and graphic designer for over 20 years. I was an art director for 9 years. And when I'm not art directing and working on illustrations and graphic designs, I'm working on comic books and graphic novels, and that's usually what I do during my streams. And while conversations can go all over the place on this stream, from spicy and entertaining to goofy and silly, one thing stays consistent throughout every stream. I'll always be working on art. So pull up a chair, get your art supplies out, and get ready for an entertaining show that'll keep you company while you work on your own personal art projects. This is Joshua Kemble's Art Stream. All right, welcome to episode 392 of my art stream. It's a late night stream. Just catching you guys up with what we talked about yesterday, where I was talking about how I'm going to be taking on going to school and streaming more frequently when I'm working on comics. But those are going to be weird hours. So today I'm going to be working on continuing to shade page 137 of Not Death But Love, the strange supernatural story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. And in the meantime, I'm also excited because I actually did my workout yesterday. I was talking about how I hadn't done that in about a month. And I had been really consistent with that for years. And so I was really stoked to get back to that. And then today I also did my rowing. So I did my lifting yesterday and my rowing today, so I don't fall apart as an old man. That's really important. And I know that's really exciting stuff. So anyhow, let's get to it. So boom, here is the page. Let me spread it out a little bit so that it looks a little better. And then we're going to just work on comics today, guys. We're going to rock some comic books. And let me minimize this screen a little bit, just so you guys I can see chat and you guys can see me. Okay, so anyhow, so today was an interesting day. I did my first assignment for a college class. It's interesting because I had to actually stop by the campus. This might make me like a boomer or whatever, but it's like, when I was going to school, most stuff was in person, and there was a little bit of like email type stuff, but there wasn't a lot of like Canva or Google Classroom or anything like that. And so while I've been teaching in a kind of more modern environment, it's interesting to be a student in that environment. So I had to go in and kind of get some stuff clarified, like how I can access, the classes and that kind of stuff. But they were very helpful, and so that was cool. And I got my first basic assignments done. Very easy stuff, just like reviewing syllabi and stuff like that. I'm sure it's going to get more intense as it goes. And I think I have a pretty good lock on what my schedule is going to look like. So it's going to be an interesting time. So what I'm going to be doing is when I can, like squeezing in a couple hours here and there to get more progress done on this book. And it's going to be interesting on top of all the different responsibilities that are coming up. But yeah, today was an interesting day. Pretty exciting. Going through some projects at school. We're starting to get into painting. That's pretty fun. The news is awfully discouraging as of late. I don't want to get too heavy into it. Yeah, but like just trying to get further progress on these things and stay true to the fight to kind of make this stuff. there was a group chat today. I also managed to get a little further on a song. Maybe I'll play that for you guys. But I have about 10 tracks, 9 tracks finished for the next album. And then I have track 10 kind of in progress. So I finished a good chunk of the music today. It's an interesting one. I like the bass line on it a lot. But maybe I'll upload that and play it on stream for you guys, for the 4 people who care. This is kind of fun because I feel like when I first started live streaming, we used to always do late night streams. And we had kind of a night gang kind of scenario where a lot of friends and stuff would show up and, work the strange night shifts that a lot of us artists have to. Yeah, but like, so what's interesting to me is, and maybe not so interesting to you, I don't know, but to me, there's a real fight that you kind of have to go through as a cartoonist or as a writer, to make time to kind of make the work. And it's often a compromise of what can be done, and just kind of accepting and also pushing for consistency. And so today I was glad I didn't listen to excuses, because I quite often, the battle that I have, like Corey's in the chats. Nice. He said, "Hey, you're live streaming." Yes, I am. If you want to hop in, feel free. I'm not talking about anything wild on the stream today. But yeah, so but yeah, Corey, if you want, the link, you can hop in if you want. So yeah, like the thing that for me is really kind of a challenge lately is, as the schedule gets more and more busy, it's easier and easier to listen to excuses, like self excuses. So that's kind of why I had stopped exercising and stuff like that, because I was like, something has to give, and it's like, no, nothing has to give. There are some plates I can kind of drop or reshuffle, but it's like there's some things that are really essential. And so one of them is making time for these like crazy projects. The other is obviously health and stuff like that. But yeah. So it was an interesting day because it's like, I feel a little more confident. It's a little nerve wracking, I think, anytime you start, school, like it was when I was originally going to grad school. I guess I should give context for anybody who might be. Corey said I'm lettering. I'm lettering right now. Hard to focus on lettering and talk. Yeah, I couldn't letter and converse. That's the one thing I can't really. I can draw while I'm live streaming. There's some elements of drawing that's a lot more fun to do not live streaming. But it's really hard to write and stream. Like, I don't know. Is there a world where there's live streaming authors? That would be really strange, because I feel like I would just end up typing. Fusion said, "This is my first time seeing this art category on stream on Twitch. I also create visuals for streamers, but I've never seen this category before." I haven't either. And he said, "By the way, keep it up. I followed you to show some love." Thank you, Fusion. Appreciate that. Yeah. Most of my my tiny community is on YouTube, but I'm always glad to have. I try to stream dual to Twitch and YouTube. Haven't had too much traction on Twitch. But anyhow, so it would be interesting to see if there's actually people who write and live stream. That would be insane. Because like for me, if I'm writing and I'm in a conversation, I will literally, I've tried to like write when conversing. Sometimes like even at a coffee shop, if I'm writing or something, I'll end up writing a conversation I hear. And it's like, oh crap, I was supposed to be writing a story here. I think I went a little too wobbly and dark on this. for context too, the page that I'm working on right now is for a graphic novel for Turner Publishing that's about Elizabeth Barrett Browning, and she's gotten kind of interested in spiritualism. It's like about Robert and Elizabeth Barrett Browning and how Elizabeth got really into seances and spiritualism, and is getting kind of taken in by this sort of villainess, and who's basically preying on the fact that Elizabeth lost her brother very tragically in the ocean. And if you don't know Elizabeth Barrett Browning, you probably do without realizing it. Elizabeth Barrett Browning is the person who wrote "How Do I Love Thee? Let Me Write the Ways." Corey said, I tried writing on a live stream once, and it was a lot of me reading out loud and mumbling edits to myself. I can't imagine it was engaging. There's a Monty Python bit about that. I think I've talked about it. But Monty Python used to have a sketch where it's like a giant arena, and it's a bunch of typists like starting their novels with like a football type announcer who's like, and they're starting their first word, the word end, and like they're reading every letter as it's being typed. It's very funny. But the bit was the fact that it would be like the most boring, least entertaining thing to see in the world. But I've been feeling encouraged, weirdly enough, with all the chaos in the world. I've started to just kind of accept. I've been getting better at this. For those of you who don't know, and if you are just tuning in, I am currently a art teacher. I'm going to be going to college again. So I basically have a master's and a bachelor's, but in studio art, a BFA and an MFA. And I'm going to be going back to school to get my teaching credentials. So I've taught college and stuff like that. But in the last year or so, I kind of made the transition from being an art director to wanting to work closer to home and really missing teaching. And turns out I really like teaching high school. So that's basically what I've been doing the last year. But that means I have to finish my credential to kind of keep my job. I have to get in the credential program. But it's also really exciting, but it's nerve-wracking because I also have a book deadline for this graphic novel that's coming up. So I got to kind of crank on pages, develop curriculum for my first year teaching for classes. Not your first year teaching in general, but first year teaching these specific classes. And then after that, somehow make the time to make some of these pages and hopefully keep, myself in good condition so that, I don't burn out. So that's basically where it's at. But I do these live streams while I'm working because I feel like it's good to have public accountability. And also it's fun to hang out with people while you work. And since I'm working anyway and I'm up late, might as well hang out. And I'm probably going to be live streaming until about 1 or 2. We'll kind of see how far I get. And ideally by 1, it'd be great to be done by 1. But I want to at minimum get hopefully 2 panels toned. So right now what I'm working on is toning the page 137. And this graphic novel slowly but surely is coming together. But there's probably about 90-ish, 94, 95 pages left to go. Which sounds like a lot, but when I started this, the 230-ish that were due seemed overwhelming and kind of daunting. And now it's starting to seem more possible. And it's fun to see the printouts of the pages because it's a full color book, doing all the color and the art. And it's also fun when you get a little bit further. Graphic novels are slower builds, I think. At least the kinds I tend to like are kind of slower builds than like a short comic. And so you have a lot more breathing room because you have a lot of pages to kind of build up anticipation or nuance or subtlety. And so it's fun when you get this far in the project because the plot really is cooking now. So it's going to get to all the fun stuff at this point. And that's kind of cool because there's a lot of build up and setup and building of tension and establishing relationships and characters, but I'm excited. There's a character in this who's a magician named Daniel Douglas Home, who was a spiritualist who did like seances and stuff like that. And he is really fun to draw, and his scenes are really fun in this book. He's a good villain. And so that's also fun because it's like, cool, I'm going to get to the pages with the villain pretty soon. If you're curious to check out what I do, check out Jacob's Apartment and Two Stories. Those are 2 published graphic novels that are currently out under Joshua Kemble. Let me move my camera down a little bit because it always gets captured. There we go. That's a little better. It always gets a little hidden under the live. How are you guys doing? Corey, it sounds like you're lettering. How's your comic coming along? Corey's got a really cool comic. You can check that out. You can get links to all Corey's stuff at coreykerr.com. Rage of Enlightenment. Rage of Enlightenment. Anyhow, I feel good. Because again, like it's funny. I think I've mentioned this on a stream or two before. I had like an old man fall the other day, where I like late at night was like working. We had relatives over, so I was working outside of my regular studio. My studio is in like the living room and of our house, and we had relatives staying over, so I couldn't work late in the living room, and so I was working in our bedroom on my laptop, and I'm not used to working there like late at night, and so I kind of forgot that there's a giant rowing machine in our bedroom that I use for exercise and stuff like that. But it's like a really long metal. If you've ever seen a rowing machine, you can kind of visualize that. And I kind of ate it and tripped on the rowing machine late at night, but I like walked into it. Like I didn't even remember it was there. So I walked into it just like you'd casually stroll. So when I fell, there was like no hands, blocking the fall. It was just like the boom. And I fell on the rowing machine. So it was like, anyhow, I'm not trying to complain. I'm just saying that threw me off my exercise game that I've been really regulated with and pretty disciplined with for the last, few years. And, after that, it's like I was really hurt. Like I had a giant bruise and stuff on my chest, stuff like that. I feel silly talking about this with Corey listening because dude was in a motorcycle accident. So what I experienced was minimal. But anyhow, the point being, it threw me off my game. And so I'm very proud of myself for getting back into it because it's like when you stop doing that kind of thing, and then it did mess me up. So it was like there were just different bruises or injuries in different spots just from like one stupid old man fall. And I started realizing like when you're old, like these kind of things happen. Welcome to the old man stream where we talk about old man falls. Anyhow, so anyhow, I feel really good about getting back to it and lifting some weights yesterday. And then I've changed up my routine a little bit too. So I'm doing a more kind of all over workout with weightlifting, and then from there I'm going to be alternating every other day. So I'll do the weightlifting one day, and then the next day I'll do my rowing and then weightlifting. So it's like I'm kind of splitting like cardio and just strength training. And I'm not doing that for to look better because I'm at an age where I don't care. I don't care how I look, but I want to function and have more endurance, and also I want to keep an eye on my mental health as I'm taking on these different challenges and stuff like that. Corey said, it's good. I'm dropping 5 pages tonight. Exciting. I can't wait to see him. It's a cool book. I'm a little jealous. I've been drawing people so much for this book and Victorian people that the idea of drawing bugs and stuff and bug fights. It sounds really fun. So anyhow, they're also coming out really great, Corey. Yeah. So what are you guys working on? I know that Fusion, you're on Twitch. If you're still following, let me know in the chats. You said you do creative projects and stuff like that and stream. So what do you work on? What are you working on right now? I really hope as I'm doing these things, like one of the fun things about these like night gang things is these late night streams. I feel like for one thing, there's like a witching hour where I think people are really, I don't know, people like me are really creative late at night. And sometimes it's like out of preference, and then sometimes it's out of necessity because it's like, you just have to carve out windows of time to kind of do this stuff. But I do think there's something magical about night where it's quiet and everyone's asleep, all your distractions are gone. I'm a dad too, and so it's easier to kind of get work done after the kid is asleep. That's for sure. Because, when he's awake, there's things we got to do. I will say, I reached out to Scott Circland. We're probably going to be changing the day that we do Artcasters, or at least the time. So if you are an Artcasters person, make sure you're on the Artcasters mailing list, because I'm sure we'll announce what we end up arriving at for like new dates and times. But yeah, because my school schedule is going to be like a lot of late nights, so I'll be like teaching till like pretty much 4, and then going straight to campus and doing like 4-hour classes, 4 of them. Not a complaint though. It's a blessing to be able to do. It's really fun actually. I really enjoy that. Like, the thing I've learned in the last few years is it's never too late to kind of switch gears and go a different route if you feel like if you feel trapped somewhere. You're not, because I did for a long time as an art director. I felt like for one thing, the title's cool. Like, I worked 20 plus years doing art, and so to be able to have that like rank of art director, like an executive position, that felt really good, like title wise. And then aside from that, it also it was like the ceiling of like the industry I've worked in for 20 plus years. And so that was cool for like a decade. But after a while, it just kind of wore me out. Like, I realized I don't kind of care about the titles. I just kind of want to I kind of want to like what I'm doing, and I want to do something a little more fulfilling than fill junk piles full of garbage. And we made some really cool stuff, but it's like, at the end of the day, I think we were kind of filling junk piles. So anyhow, I wrote a whole album about it called Worst Places to Work. But anyhow, so I had like this really big change the last year where I kind of left that position and kind of redefined my career and found something much closer. Because I think another thing that I was getting very tired of after 10 years was like, you can see it on my YouTube channel too. A lot of my old vloggins, what I used to call my Kenny vloggins, those were really hard to do, and not just hard to do, but they were really long commutes. So I would often film them in my car, you know, and because I was driving, like hours and hours a day. And so just the excess of time that I have now is so much better. So that's cool. Because even with school, like pretty much me going to school is going to be about the same amount of time that commute used to consume. And so that's pretty cool. Um, but anyhow, so I wanted something closer. I kind of ended up realizing like I want to do something different. So I ended up doing something different and going back to teaching because I really enjoyed teaching when I used to teach college. And I thought I'd try out high school because, there's not a lot of colleges in our area that are hiring. And so, and then tenure track positions are pretty rare. So it's like, I was like, well, maybe they'll try out high school stuff. Just kind of trusting the fact that it can kind of work. And even if it doesn't, it's not the end of the world. And just taking things day by day. So it was a big transition because, like, for anyone out there who might be listening, when you have like a family and you're kind of the sole breadwinner of that family, there can be a lot of pressure and expectation that you're going to make ends meet, and you very well should because it's your responsibility, I think. But it was a big risk, and so it was kind of fun to take a risk and actually have it kind of pan out and see my personal happiness grow. And my family, I think, is a lot happier with my new position too. And so, needless to say, I think no matter what age you are, you shouldn't feel trapped. And if you do feel trapped, I empathize because I felt trapped for quite a few years in what I was doing. But what I've found is really fun, and this maybe gets into like my beliefs or whatever. But I feel like if you kind of trust like the higher power that is kind of putting you where you are, and just kind of rest in the fact that you will arrive somewhere that's better for you. You can kind of survive a lot of uncertainty, and I kind of think that I was hearing this from somebody, and I don't want this to sound like I'm comparing what I went through the last few years as like a war, because it's not. But I remember hearing somebody who was talking about living in a country that was in war, and they were talking about how you kind of, as a human, you can kind of adjust, um, and overcome like really strange circumstances, and still kind of retain hope and trust, and kind of take things day by day. And I think sometimes, um, the illusion of safety is a dangerous thing, in my opinion. So I think sometimes we can kind of feel like we're in a scenario, or that somehow we can arrange things, um, and I really think it's dangerous for creatives, to kind of get in this mode. But I think as a human, it's very easy to get in that mode where you can kind of convince yourself that uh, like if you build your castle moat uh, wide enough that you can somehow avoid the storms that inevitably will come with life, right? And you're kind of joining the club of just, thousands of years of history of humans trying to, outsmart aging, trying to outsmart sickness, trying to outsmart threats or danger, and failing epically, you know? Um, so I kind of think at the end of the day, life is a little dangerous, and it's not super bad to just kind of lean into taking things day by day. Because I think, what is it? As somebody who has struggled with mental health issues, I wrote a whole book about it called Two Stories. That's a graphic novel kind of destigmatizing conversations about that stuff. But as somebody who's struggled with that kind of stuff, they always say like depression is kind of being obsessed and regretful of the past, and anxiety is like being freaked out about the future. And I think a lot of people who struggle with mental health stuff have trouble kind of being present, right? And then that's such an abstract idea because I also think sometimes things legitimately suck. Like, you know, um, there's a book of Job is like a old, I think it was like the first book or whatever in the Bible, something like that. But it kind of gets into the story about Job and his friends. And it's one of my favorite things is like his friends are all kind of doing the social media thing. Like, so anyhow, it's a weird old story, but it's like basically the gist of it is like this guy is just going through the most hellish experience a person could. He like loses his whole family. He gets really sick. He like starts having physical problems. He like loses everything he owns, and it's all like him being tested. But his friends are pretty much like telling him like, well, think on the positive side. Like, think on the good side, or you just aren't trusting enough, and stuff like that. And I think to me what's interesting about that is they're very quickly scolded for being like that. And I think the gist of that story is the idea that like there are some times where people have hardships that you can't kind of make better. Like they're not necessarily good circumstances, and it just won't be. There's definitely times I think where people have suffering, or uh like their circumstances like just suck. Like it's hard to find hope. um and I think it's okay to say that sometimes. But if somebody's going through something really tough, sometimes it's nice to just say, yeah, that's awful, and not be like, oh, poor you. Just be like, hear the person out, and feel the fact that what they're going through sucks. you know without solutions or like platitudes, that kind of stuff. Anyhow, my point is, with all that being said, as a hedge, there is something to being in the moment. um Kids are very quick, like little kids are very quick to kind of shift. um like, when my son was very little, he would go from, being really sad to really happy, like really quickly. It wasn't hard for him to kind of bounce back from something, and I think it's because I think as a kid, you're not really thinking, you're kind of as a child, like children are really in the present um time. Like I think even mentally, I think they haven't really even developed the capacity to, like, when they're really little, when we were all really little, when we were all children. I don't even think we had really a capacity to like think ahead, or think in the past too much. So it's interesting because there's something I've noticed with like fear, where I think sometimes when people have anxiety, it's like it's not like you see people at a very young age with a lot of anxiety, because they can't like think ahead too much to like really feel a lot of anxiousness. And they're not really thinking in the past too much either. They're kind of in the present. um which can be a problem too, right? Like if you're thinking too much in the present, then you're not really planning, and that can be a problem. But anyhow, I'm just rambling about stuff I've been thinking about. But my point with that is, this last year I've been kind of forced, like in a good way, to really take things, the past few years, to take things like a step at a time, day by day. And I've actually found a lot of happiness in that, more than I did when I was trying to kind of secure my moat. Keeping that like moat analogy, because again, like, uh, you can't dig a deep enough moat to like protect your castle. Just trust history on that. Like people will find a way. Life finds a way. What was it? The dude from Jurassic Park. Oh, this was cool. So we had to go to Universal Studios well, we didn't have to, but we took my kid to Universal Studios for his birthday, and because Universal season passes are like $10 more than just the entry, we ended up getting season passes. And the last time we went on the Universal Studios ride, but they have little stuffed animals of Malcolm from Jurassic Park that were really funny. They're like little chibi Malcolms, which I thought was hilarious. Because that's easily the best part of the original Jurassic Park is Malcolm. Okay, we're gonna get this page rendered. Look at that. It's a rendered page. Well, not a page, but a rendered panel. That's a good thing. So we're making some progress, and it's only 12, so I have a good hour or so to go. Okay. So with that being said, I'm going to play a trailer really quick, and then I'll be right back. Let's play. I need to make some trailers for my music. If you're out there and you're bored and you want to make a trailer for one of my albums that mentions your stream and stuff like that, it's under a minute, go for it. Send it to me. Okay, I'm going to play Home Shopping Crumble. And this is by Jim Lujan. And just as a shout out, since Jim's done 3 amazing ads for me, I should mention Jim Lujan, indie animator extraordinaire, has one of the funniest YouTube channels called The Grand Supper, where he is basically posting a bunch of fake bands. And it's like a new song every like hour. It's kind of amazing. They're like every genre. It's all parody music and humorous music, but really well done and hilarious. And he used to actually post a lot of these as like a fake radio show called The Fake Explosion back in the day. But now you can hear all of this amazing music by Jim Lujan and chuckle and enjoy yourself by going to the Grand Supper. But with that in mind, here is Jim's cartoon called Home Shopping Crumble.
Well, thank you, Colleen. I hope your daughter Kelly does well at North Carolina State this year. Well, we got another caller on the line. Elizabeth from Phoenix, Arizona. Elizabeth, what can we do for you? Are you ready to do some shopping, girl?
Oh, yes, Terry. I am ready to do some shopping today. I'm interested in that 2-book set you have. 2 Stories and Jacob's Apartment.
Oh, well, that's a great choice.
In fact, I bought these books before. I gave a set to my grandson, Hunter. These books are amazing.
Well, they sure are, and if you buy both of them, you really get the whole feel of the whole Joshua Kemble universe. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do, Terry. These books are remarkable because, for one, you can take them anywhere. You could put them in your car, and you can go to the park or the river. We've gone to the river. My husband Taylor and I, we just love it. And I murdered my husband at the river. Yeah, I did. But these still are amazing books.
All right, that was Home Shopping Crumble, and we're back, and now we're going to work on the next panel and shading the next panel here. If you're tuning in just now, I'm working on a graphic novel called Not Death But Love, The Strange Supernatural Story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. I'm adding rendering to the panels for page 137 and hanging out late at night. Hopefully you guys are working on something creative as well. Okay, here we go. My goal is to get at minimum 2 of these panels shaded. That would be good. I gotta say though, the downside of if you don't do exercise for a couple weeks, when you finally hit the gym again or whatever, it's like brutally painful. The nice thing about sustaining exercise is like it's not as painful on a daily basis to like recover. But if you take a break, recovery is a little slower the first few days back. But it's, it's not a bad pain. It's just funny because I'm like, ooh, like muscles aching. And again, I'm not really much of a lifter or whatever. So, for me, the weight that's causing muscles to hurt, the next day is probably very low compared to people who are like gym rats. All right. So let me see if I can get that song uploaded real quick while I'm working. It has no vocals yet, but it's fun to share what I have in progress because I worked on this today and yesterday. And that's kind of where I'm at on it. But like with music, I talked about this yesterday. Let me see if I can make this happen. With music, I try to put aside about 15 minutes a day to track whatever I can track. And so usually I'll do like a little section of a verse or a little section of a chorus or a breakdown or something like that. And you know what? I don't think I've shared a lot of these songs. So let me see if I can kind of pull some of the other ones from this little solo thing too. Because I think the last one I shared was track 6. And so I literally have... No, the last one I shared was track 7. So I'm going to share track 8 and 9 as well. If you guys want to hear a little sneak peek of unmastered versions of the songs that are pending for the next album. I do have the masters, but I don't have MP3s of those to upload yet. I think I got that. That's 8. Did 9 go up? Let's try 9. Okay, I'm going to do that. Okay, so maybe I did 8 too, but we'll play 8, 9, and 10 while I'm working. And then I know Corey's working on comics. I know there's some other people watching too, so if you're watching this, let me know what creative projects you have. Or are you stalling on a creative project? Okay, here we go. Let's play track 8. So here's track 8. And then this is a sneak preview of the 8th track on my next solo album that hasn't been released yet. It's weird. All of these are weird. Let me turn up the volume. Sorry for stopping that. I just realized that's the old one. That must have been the last one I shared, but that's just that I hadn't added lyrics to yet. So let me play. Sorry to kind of stop the flow of that. It was sounding good, but I have since added lyrics and vocals. So let me play the more new version of that. So I'll play 8, 9, and 10. So this will be something exclusive that no one's heard yet, except maybe the friend of mine, Robbie, who is mastering this stuff. All right. And actually, this song is specifically about some of the stuff I've been talking about, because I've been thinking about that lately. Kind of how people will kind of remake the wheel over and over again and like hurt themselves over it and not realize like there's something deeper to life than just kind of, basically just constant striving after wind. Okay, here we go. Let's play it. Sorry for the false start before. Here it is.
Running like a piston. In spite of this insistence, your existence is just chance. Meanwhile, neutrinos and atoms dance. You decaying sycophant, try to hold the candle but you can't. Offer the hope of the great orchestrator. You offer slow decaying labor, a slow death and nothing greater. The significance of vapor, the hiss of a dying fire, can't compare to the eternal breath that made the air you breathe. Constants holding all the things, black holes engulfing everything, the universe and everything that you believe. And then you'll be sorted and sifted with a sieve. So don't feel that bad if you talk bad about my belief.
The mold and pour into clay that dries and splits in two. the wheel till it no longer spins. It's a beginning where to it no end. Like crafting a letter no one ever sends. Cast the mold I'm poured into clay that dries and splits in two. Collections of things we lost along the way. What are these strange things in our collections of things we lost along the way? What are these strange things in our collections of things we lost along the way? What are these strange things in our collections of things we lost along the way? What are these strange things in our collections of things we lost along the way? What are these strange things in our collections of things we lost along the way? Of things we lost along the way? Of things we lost along the way?
All right, so that was the. I'm guessing I'm going to be calling that "Things We Lost Along the Way," but that was my 8th song for my album, where I played everything: bass, guitar. The drums are synths, so that's just a drum machine. But everything else, the keys, everything I played. I did like a strings kind of thing on keyboard in the background, like a discordant kind of tense orchestral thing in the background, which was kind of interesting. So I'm pretty proud of that. And I know the mastered version sounds immensely better, but I'm pretty proud of that song. I think it was pretty good. So that was track 8. Let me know in chat if you guys want me to keep previewing some music, I got a 9th track and a 10th track. The 10th track doesn't have, it's not finished. The 10th is like a sneak preview of something that's cooking, that's in the works. But actually, honestly, it's pretty late, and I think, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to play it. So let's play track 9. So here's track 9 from my album that I'm going to be releasing soon. Unmastered, just kind of preview of this.
Starting to see that I can't think straight, and all around me are the indicators that we are heading toward disaster. There's fires on the hillside, we'll get buried in a landslide, and if we don't, then the earth will quake and take away all we hold dear, all we hold dear. Woo! Fires on the hillside, burning up the landscape, houses all capsized, washed away by the tide, ashes in the ocean, memories flow out like a tipped glass of water, full empty, descent we define ourselves by the possessions we gather, things we cling to when we feel like they matter, hoarding, collecting, our houses built in clay, we lose all we hold dear in eruptions like Pompeii, all we hold dear. Surface over everything, but under the table there is pain we've never seen, glass-like and fragile, broken with the slightest touch, crystal surface over everything, but under the table there is pain we've never seen.
I think we're being joined by Mr. Corey Kerr. So Corey, give me a heads up if you're good. Was the ukulele what drew you?
That's what it was. Yeah.
You're like, I heard uke. It's like the bat signal for Corey.
It's been a long time.
For those of you who don't know, Corey used to be the art director or the creative director at a guitar place that's specialized in awesome ukuleles, and particularly weird electric ukuleles, all sorts of ukuleles.
Yeah, they were pretty.
Did you guys
bizarre.
make banjoleles?
No, I tried. So I had a couple prototypes. My favorite one that I did, or that I came across that we didn't do, was a ukulele made out of an old tin coffee can.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was cool because the paper label didn't quite adhere perfectly to the coffee can, and so it rattled just a little bit, and it gave it it almost sounded like you were listening to it on a really old radio.
Yeah, I'd imagine it would have like a resonator kind of vibe. That's the kind of that's the thing. I have like over 20 guitars now, Corey. It's too many.
You have 20 guitars?
Something like that now, yeah. I think it's about 20 now. Yeah. It happened fast.
Yeah, that's I think you might have more guitars than I've got published original pages.
Yeah. Well, that'll change soon. That's going to change very quickly. But the one guitar that I still don't have, there's always one, It's like, I don't have a 7-string. So then I got a 7-string, which was actually really fun. And I've been really impressed. I was expecting that Schecter to only be good for like metal stuff.
Yeah.
But they have surprisingly crystal clear pickups. Like, I was really blown away by their custom pickups on those things. I was like, oh, that's why people buy Schecters. But now, like, a resonator would be really fun because it has that tinny the thing you were describing. That would be really
Yeah.
fun to own.
Yeah. I
you
still
doing?
think the next thing you should get is I can't even remember what they call it, but it's the weirdest bass guitar I've ever seen. It's a ukulele, and the strings are like
Like
three-quarters of an
nylon?
inch, three-quarters of an inch thick.
They're
No,
like those
they
big, thick, plasticky ones, or are you talking about?
not plasticky. They almost feel like a fishing lure.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. They feel
Yeah.
like rubber. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fun.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've played
Yeah.
one of those once or twice, and they have surprisingly like real. It almost sounds like a stand-up bass. Weirdly,
Yeah. Mhm.
like it sounds like doom, 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 like
Yep,
it has that
yep.
kind of vibe.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they're fun. You know,
How's the life in freezing world?
it was -17 yesterday, so that was cold. But they don't shut.
17?
Yeah,
I
so they
thought it
don't
was
shut.
crazy when you showed me it was 4.
Well, if you
Negative
look
4.
at the screenshot, the low was -17, the high was 4. So, but yeah, they don't shut. They don't
So
shut
4 is like
school
a
down.
warm day right now for you.
It warmed up to 4. They don't shut schools down unless it's below -20 because below -20 the diesel fuel in the buses freezes and it won't run.
Are you kind of rooting for that? Like, come on, let's get there. Let's get to.
Oh no,
negative
I have had. I'm talking elementary, like K through 12.
Yeah.
But like the college that I teach at, they're like our kids don't ride buses. Like they're adults, they can show up. So
Oh wow,
even if it's -20, we'll still show up to class.
that is bold, my dude.
Yeah. So
You were telling me about when you first moved there. I remember that story you were saying about like showering, like when you first moved there, and then not
Yeah.
fully drying off your hair and going out, and then you're like half your facial or your hair like
yeah,
froze
your
off.
hair just freezes and breaks off. Right. Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Well, and I've never had better like nose hair maintenance than since I've moved here. Just because like you can't have nose hairs. Like you go
Oh, are they
outside.
gonna just like become like
Well, they
knives
just-
in your?
Yeah, they just
nose?
freeze, and you constantly feel like but it's just thick frozen nose hair because you breathe on them, which is condensation, which immediately freezes.
Oh wow, do they like increase too? Like the more you breathe, it's just like expanding because you're adding moisture to freeze
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, to be
That's
honest,
wild.
I don't spend a ton of time outside
Yeah,
when it's like this, so But yeah,
I
it's
guess there's an advantage to being a kind of creative type, because you got a lot of stuff to do indoors.
right. Yep. I mean, we were a one-car family for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And so I walked to work in all of this for a while. And I'm glad I don't have to do that anymore.
That also
Yeah.
just sounds like a very treacherous walk.
Yeah, so you have to wear, it's like, you know what crampons are?
That's the funniest word in the world, but no, I don't. What are they?
It's like a crampon is like, it's something that you put on your boot to like climb frozen waterfalls, right?
Wait, are they
They're-
like this weird kind of like giant? It almost looks like a tennis racket you put on your foot.
No,
that?
so those are snowshoes. So crampons are like it honestly looks like something Rob Liefeld would draw. It's like
Like spikes.
yeah, like these big giant knives that you just wear on your feet.
Nice.
There's a walking version of those where it's basically like this rubber net that you stretch over your boots, and they have little metal spikes on the bottom.
Oh, crazy! So it's like tire chains.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
not tire chains spikes, and not for tires, but for your feet.
Yeah, yeah. Or there's a cable version where they've got like a wire that wraps around like a rubber thing with a wire wrapped around it. So that's
That's
a lot
very
more like
Rob
the tire,
Liefeld.
tire chains.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway,
because it's got a cable. I mean,
Right.
how much more Liefeld can you get?
Just if you added some pouches, then you'd be good to go. But no, I mean I'd wear those, and then you kind of just. I had this 9-foot long scarf that my wife knitted, and I just kind of would wrap it around my head because you don't want to breathe that air directly. It's
Yeah.
not good. So
It's
anyways,
what's
you
wild too is like you
Yeah.
really can't mess around with like a crap jacket. Like you need real, like legit
Yeah.
warm jacket, right?
Yeah, so I use synthetic down jackets that you can get for pretty cheap, and
Yeah.
they're like the puffy jackets. They're pretty good. And then
Have you ever
I'll wear,
worn one
like-
of those big fuzzy like Russian style hats, like the big old, hunter caps?
I have not. Yeah, but
You're missing out. You could be like Holden Caulfield, where you rock a
Right.
hunter cap, a red one,
yeah, yeah,
and then wander around, aimlessly questioning purpose and existence.
yeah. Getting annoyed at graffiti.
Yeah, it's a good book.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. I haven't read it since high school, I don't think, but
I think the last time I read it, it's interesting. It shifts. In high school, I
Yeah.
related to it a lot.
right.
And when you get older, you're just kind of like, yeah, that's kind of. I mean, yeah, people are phony, but get over it, kid. You're being kind of dumb.
Right. That's I had
It's
that
like there's so
experience-
much worse to be sad about, dude. Don't worry, you'll face worse.
Yeah, I had that experience reading Spider-Man. So like I,
Yeah.
like really related when I was like 12
Oh, dude.
to 15.
Yeah, that was my jam. Like that.
Yeah.
That was my book. Like
Right.
out of all the main superheroes, that was the one that I
Yeah, you
most
read
related
you
to.
read Web of Spider-Man, right?
Yeah, the worst
Yeah.
one that never accrued in value.
But
I think it does now because I have the first, alien costume appearance issue.
Oh
I
yeah,
haven't
yeah.
checked the value yet.
Oh, that's cool.
I had to sell some comics, Corey,
I
from the long box.
I hate floppies, man.
Yeah, I
hate
do
'em.
too. I never
Actually-
open them. I never go in the long box. I should just bring the long box to my comic shop and say, pick what you want and pay for it, and the rest just junk them.
I'll tell you one good thing you can do with it that Scarlett is doing. She just painted her room, and I just gave her a big stack of comics, and she is basically wallpapering her walls with like comic pages.
Did you hear about? There was a this will be Scarlet in like 100 years, but there was a guy who had like a kid who had made like a what's it called, like Mod Podge or whatever that's called, where
Yeah,
you do
mhm.
it's like the thing fake art teachers do and think it's
Right.
art.
Where they're
They're
like,
like,
it's
"Oh,
craft day every day.
Yeah, I'm gonna I'm trying an assemblage, an assemblage collage. But anyhow, so like they did that like paste thing. There's a word for it. I'm just blanking out on. But and one of the things that they cut out as a kid was the number and like the price and all this stuff from the first issue of the first appearance of Superman, Action Comics #1.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?
And years later, they auctioned the little piece of Action Comics #1 cover for like $100,000 or something ridiculous, just for a piece of the cover
Yeah.
that this kid had, which makes you think: does that person feel like they won, or do they feel like I lost out on multi-million dollars? But it's one of those things of like, what do you do? Like hoard everything, assuming it's going to accrue in
Right.
value? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
I was just thinking about it the other day when I was a teenager. I like disassembled my grandpa's like 16 millimeter camera and ripped it apart and turned it
Yeah.
into a lightsaber.
That's pretty.
And now I'm like, I don't know where the lightsaber is. It'd be cool to still have it, but I don't know
Yeah.
where that is. But also, like that was a functioning, like fully,
Yeah.
totally working 16 millimeter camera. Like, kind of wish I still had that camera. Like,
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to like. I think you can't kind of like, I don't know. It's kind of like I remember I have a bit of a collector in me because I was a nerd, And I
Yeah.
remember when Ben started getting to like Pokemon cards. I would be like, "Oh, you got to be careful with that; it's gonna accrue." And then finally, I was like, "Wait a minute, who cares?
Yeah. Have fun with it, man.
Who
Just
cares?
play
Have
with
fun
it.
with it. I don't care. Like,
Enjoy.
there's some nerdy collector out there." And the thing that made me realize I don't care was we were at a Target because they sold like packs of Pokemon cards for like real
Yeah.
cheap.
Mhm.
And so we went to get them, and some like 30-year-old like pushed my son like physically
Oh my gosh.
out of the way so he could grab a Pokemon pack. And I had to like go up to him and kind of get in his face and be like, dude, you just pushed, like, because I think at the time my kid was like 5 You know,
Jeez.
it's like you pushed a 5-year-old to get to a Pokemon card.
What did he say?
He was in a frenzy, and it's funny because he was like, the second he realized what he had done, he was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and like I was like, "Whatever, dude." Like,
Okay, well, at
I
least
did
he-
make him apologize and stuff like that, but anyhow,
at
he
least he
ended up giving the
recognized.
card pack to my son, you know, because he was like, "Yeah, I can't. That's kind of insane. This collector thing drove me to push 5-year-olds out of the way." But I remember when that happened, I was like, "Yeah, damage the cards, write all over them. Who cares?"
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Oh my
Because
gosh.
otherwise, the alternative is being that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
Word.
Yeah. It's weird. It's a weird balance. I don't know.
What's something you think, like, what's a thing? You don't have to have an answer to this. It's just an interesting thought. I don't think I have an answer to this. What's a thing you used to own that you would just like kill to have? Kind of like similar to that, Super 8 thing. Something you maybe like have kept an eye out for and never been able to find.
Oh, I'll tell you. I bought a 1984 Cadillac Eldorado coupe in college for $50. And that thing was a piece of crap, but I loved it. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And I sold it for $1,200. But I wish I didn't sell it. I wish I still had that caddy. It was like,
Those
I
are
mean,
fun
like,
cars, man. They're like a boat.
freaking boat, like the
Yeah.
hood.
Get pulled
like,
over
I
by
had
the
to-
cops all the time in them too.
I did. No, I really
Yeah.
did.
No, my friend had
Constantly.
an old, a classic Oldsmobile, I think. It was like one of the
Yeah.
old, just giant car,
Yeah.
big boat, painted it baby blue, and like he put like vinyl top on it and stuff. But we used to get pulled over all the time. And the first thing the cops would say was, "Are you in a gang?" And I always thought that weird. It was the weirdest thing. So like, if we were in a gang, like, why would we say it? But I guess I've talked to police
Yes.
officers since. And
Yes, I
that's
am.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of normal. Like, if you're in a gang and you're asked your affiliation, you're supposed to say. So even if it's to a cop, and I was like, "Oh, that's dumb."
Yeah.
But I was like, "Why did the cops ask that?" And I remember a friend of mine was hanging out with his friend who was a cop, and I asked him, and he was like, "Oh, they'll just tell you.
They just say
Like,
it.
Yeah, they'll be like, 'Yes, officer,' and it's like, well, okay, who are you repping?" Like, it's so
Yeah.
dumb. But anyhow, so you used to get
Yeah.
pulled over in it?
Yeah, in Idaho.
That's wild.
And it's like, dude, there's not a gang for like 150 miles of here.
Yeah, but those like
There's,
boat muscle cars, they're just those are cool engines though, man.
I had to
that's-
open the hood and
Yeah.
put in gasoline into the carburetor, and then there'd be a little explosion just to start the car every single time I started the car. And now,
The idea of this little mini explosion.
yeah, yep.
Well, okay, we're good.
Yeah, and now 25 years later, I'm too cheap to buy a battery for the car battery that just died because it was too cold. And
Yeah.
so I'm just charging my battery every night so that I can start it twice. Because I drive half a mile to work.
Yeah.
So it's like I start the car, it's 5 degrees outside. I
Yeah.
drive to work, I leave it parked 5 degrees all day.
Uh-huh.
And then I start the car again and I drive half a mile home. It never has any time to recharge. And so the battery died and then just sat in the parking lot outside, for 8 hours. And so the charge and all the whatever chemical process keeps the battery working went away,
Yeah.
And
We're
and I-
scientists. We know what that is.
Yeah.
I think.
There's something. All I
Yeah.
know is if you leave a dead battery too long without recharging it, it stays dead.
Yeah.
So it's been like a week and a half, and I'm just like, I have a float charger in my garage, so I just plug my car in every night, and it gives me just enough juice to start it twice. It's a really stupid. I don't know. Like, I'm an adult now. I should
understand.
just.
I'm the
I
same
just-
way though. It's like the
just like
leftover
whatever.
thing. I can't not keep leftovers. It's just in my
It's-
soul now.
It's weird. I think people who don't take leftovers home, I think they didn't grow up poor.
I think they
Like-
either didn't grow up poor or that's why they grew up poor. That's one or the other.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's poor by circumstance, and then there's poor by choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Um,
I don't know.
Wow. But yeah, I don't know, man. I still have some of that in my soul of just like the hoarder bit, but it's like, kind of I'll hang on to this, it'll be useful. I'll
You
hang
know,
on to this food. It's not bad yet, is it?
do you? I have
Is
only
that cheese
recently
really moldy? I could just cut off like a slice of
just
that
cut
mold.
off, and you can just kind of mold anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean it's mold anyway. Is that
No,
meat
I
really bad?
right. I mean, third world countries, they just throw spices on it, right? You could
Yeah, I
you
mean,
could just make it spicier, and it'll be
Aren't
fine.
tapeworms
Rancid meat is
technically
okay.
meat too? I mean, really, like the worms
I
are
still
meat
remember
too. So.
the day that I was told that milk that has gone bad can't hurt you; it just tastes bad, and I was like, oh, okay.
Is
That's
that
fine.
true?
I don't know.
I suspect that's not true.
It might not be, but
Because I think you could
it
get
got rid
really
of.
sick from sour milk. Like I remember, there's been a few times in my
You'd have
life
to
where
drink
I
a
drank
lot of
really
it, though.
nasty. Yeah, that's a heinous taste, though.
I think like I've had this. This is such a gross topic, but I've had like I've taken a swig out of a gallon of milk from the fridge
Yeah.
and like had like a curdled chunk go
Yeah.
into my mouth,
Oh,
and I think
yeah.
at that point you're probably. But if it's just like a little, it's like a few hours off.
Oh
it
no,
start-
I think the
started to
expiration
turn.
date's BS, but it's like
No, I
think
mean I'm like you can taste the sour, but
Yeah.
it's not like so bad that
it's not
it
so
makes
bad
you
that
gag.
you open the milk and it fills the house with the stench.
Yeah, you're just
of-
like, oh,
Yeah.
hit with a wall of stench.
Because I
Yeah.
think there's actually, I'm trying to think of something that's like grosser than curdled milk as like just a smell and a flavor. I can't think of a lot.
Dead bodies.
Yeah, dead
That's
bodies
the-
problem. Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
fair point.
death is a
Yeah, that's not a great smell.
like decay in general is just that it just smells so bad.
Corey's like,
Yeah.
I'm around that smell all the time, and it's just the worst.
Right.
Like, Corey,
Those-
what? It's like,
those
no, I mean,
bodies-
just those bodies.
Like it
that are
does.
in the
I mean,
cellar.
I'm just saying, like the acid like doesn't break that stuff down like
Yeah.
it does in the movies. It takes a while.
You're like, I mean, it's especially a little bit better now that it's, negative 14, but when it starts getting warmer.
Oh man, my buddy's got one of those UV 3D printers in his office.
Wait, okay, so I know of UV printers. See, this is how little I know of 3D printers.
I might be using the wrong term.
Okay, because
But
like
there's-
UV is like the light thing, and it
Yeah, yeah.
uses like UV light to like print, but it can print on like anything.
Yeah.
Um, But then I'm not sure. I think there is a UV in a 3D print, so I think you're right. I'm just
So there's the
my brain
3D
is-
there's
yeah.
the 3D printer that does like the filament where it like melts the string of plastic and it spits it
Yeah.
out of the little thing.
And then there's the other one that's like sublimated, where it like drips. It's like fills up and then falls down, right?
yeah, so it's a vat of UV responsive liquid. And
Okay,
then
so it is UV.
So it prints it upside down, so the plate goes down and the bottom of the
And it just
vat
like oops into existence.
glass. Yeah, and it just flashes light in patterns, and where the light hits the liquid and is touching the plate, it hardens, and so it just slowly pulls the form out.
So I'm
It
gonna
looks-
guess that is
yeah.
that a little more accurate, like a little more accurate, like that requires less sanding and stuff when you're done, or
Yeah, because there's no like ridges. So like where
Yeah.
it's spitting it out of the little frosting tip,
yeah,
you get those little ridges, and you got to sand it or melt it with like acetate gas or something.
Yeah.
No, this comes out perfectly smooth. It
That's
can distort a little bit, but anyway, his office smells terrible.
wow.
That was-
But I kind
that
of
was-
want to play with one of those. The only problem is I don't want to learn 3D modeling. I really
Yeah.
don't.
I know. I have been told for years, like, oh, you got to get into 3D. And I'm like, dude, I could spend the next 80 years learning 2D stuff and I'd be perfectly happy and I never want to get into 3D.
I also fear it kind of like I do animation, where there's an addiction once you see something move. And I
Yeah.
feel like the second you're able to make a physical thing yourself with no, factory,
I mean,
like a
it's
three-dimensional thing from your
yeah,
brain.
it's Star Trek, man.
Yeah, that just sounds super addictive. Like,
it
I think I'd
literally
end up
is-
3D printing everything. Like, I'd start 3D
Yeah.
printing houses and stuff.
I think. Well, have you seen the 3D printed houses that they do with concrete 3D printers?
I have. I think it's really interesting. They'll
Yeah.
like do the concrete and then line it with rebar and then kind of like do another layer of concrete over it. It looks pretty secure.
Yeah.
I have a suspicion though. Like I'm a little suspicious of any time there's like, you won't believe this technology, because it reminds me of like the tiny house thing.
Oh yeah.
It's like, I love the idea of tiny houses in theory, but anytime I watch videos on it, I'm like, that is a hellscape nightmare, and it's being sold to you as a beautiful thing. Where it's like, I'm gonna live in a shed, like,
Right.
it's like,
yeah.
in a weird way, it's like, I don't know if that's a good thing that our culture's gotten to the point where it's like, yeah, I really want to live in a shed, guys. We're gonna live in a shed. I'm gonna live in a school bus.
No, the
Convert
ones that get me are the shipping containers.
Yeah, although it is
You have-
really interesting.
Yeah, you have no idea how much I want to convert a shipping container into some sort of livable space.
I want a shipping container bunker in the backyard, like in that
Yeah.
Twilight Zone episode where, the specific Twilight Zone episode where like the neighbors all freak out and think it's the end of the world, and they all almost kill each other and they get really racist and crazy, and then it turns out it was like a false alarm. They're trying to get into that shelter. I want that shelter.
Yeah, you can't
'Cause
do that
that's
with a
the one.
shipping
It's like a-
container.
You bury the shipping container.
No, I know that's the problem. So the shipping containers have vertical tensile strength.
Tensile.
Not tensile, vertical compression, right?
Tensile might actually be the word, because I think utensile might have something to do with pressure. I don't know.
I'm not sure if I'm using.
You're more schooled in words than I am, Corey.
I
I'm
don't
schooled
know
in.
if I am, but I do have a computer in front of me. Let's look up tensile strength. I know tensile strength is an interesting term.
Tonsil strength is great too. If
Let's
you
see,
got
what is-
really good tonsil strength, then you don't have to get them removed.
Capable of tension, ductile,
Okay, so
relating
you're
to
right.
or involving tension. So I don't
Boom.
think that's right, because tension would be opposing forces pulling away from each other.
Oh, and this is
So
you're
the
saying
opposite of
it's like the wrong kind of. So it would basically cave in with all that the side
cave in
pressure?
cave in from the sides because
'Cause
of
it's
the
built
dirt
to-
that pushes on the sides, because it's built to stack vertically.
Reinforced from the top. Interesting.
Yeah, and so you have to reinforce this. So there's a bunch of there's a bunch of people that were like, "Oh, that's great," because you can buy one of those 40 by 10
Yeah.
shipping containers, 10 by 10 by 40,
Yeah.
for like $3,000,
Yeah.
and they're like, it's a giant thing of steel.
And the neat
So,
thing is,
like-
even shipping isn't like crazy expensive, because most trucks are built to connect to those.
Mhm.
So like even
Yeah.
shipping isn't like insanely expensive compared to like if you wanted to get like a house shipped to you.
Right, and most of the time you don't even really need to ship it because they're everywhere.
Yeah.
So, like if you look at your freeway, there's
Oh, I just
You
mean
know.
like, to attach it to a truck isn't.
Right.
It's not going to
Yeah.
cost you like what it would cost to like mail a house
right. Yeah. To have
Yeah.
it delivered to your
or
to
even
your
a
house.
mobile home, right? Because again, like the trucks are built to have a shipping container as their back, know. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that is really intriguing. What would you do with a shipping container? Just make a
I would-
studio or a
Yeah,
sauna?
backyard studio. I would not do a sauna. I think you'd suffocate. You'd have to
Yeah.
you'd have to get your ventilation really well. The nice thing about wood is it naturally, has
Breathes.
gaps and yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, a sealed shipping container that is supposed to be able to live in the ocean for like 3 months without getting
that's
the
true.
contents
I guess that's kind of like
uh,
cooking yourself
wet. Yeah.
if you were to do
Right.
that.
Yeah, which is technically a sauna. But no, I totally just do like an insulated, soundproof studio in the backyard, so I could listen to music as loud as I want at any hour of
Nice.
the day.
Oh, I like that.
And I think there would be something about like like the transition of the threshold, right? You pass the threshold of that. You're like going into a different world rather than just like walking into a different room in your house. You like
Yeah.
go outside, walk down like a spiral staircase into this like vault door.
Yeah. It definitely needs some kind of
Yeah.
cool entrance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ones that I like are the kind of ones that look like the Shire. They're
Yeah.
like partially exposed in the front and have like
Oh,
a
those
Hobbit
Hobbit
door.
ones? I've looked
Yeah.
at those. They're
Yeah.
they're like weird. You can buy them in like little sections and attach them.
Mhm.
I've
Yeah.
looked at those.
So that'd
they
be
have
fun.
they have spots for you to put like sod over and stuff. It's like
Right, yeah.
so it can
yeah.
literally be like a little Hobbit hole. Yeah, I
And
want
the
a
nice
Hobbit.
the nice thing about underground here is like you don't have to go that far down to where like everything is kind of 50, 60 degrees, so it's just
Oh, it's actually
under
warmer naturally.
way warmer, and it's
Interesting.
it's cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter, just without any extra heat or air conditioning or anything.
Unbelievable.
I mean, that's why you have like root cellars and stuff. It's like a natural refrigerator in the summer is to just have stuff under the ground.
I love it.
Yeah. What would
Well,
you
Corey,
do? With
I'm
the-
going
what
to
would you do
disappear
with
for
the
like
thing?
2 seconds and then I'll talk to
Okay.
you about it. But do you want to chat or do you want me to play a trailer? I don't care. either way.
Yeah, you could play a trailer. I'm good.
Okay, let's do Wordzoid. I'll be right back.
Well, Peter, since I'm such a big music fan, I'm gonna have to go with Karen Carpenter. Oh, Stu, I'm sorry. That's the incorrect answer. Trish, what you got for us?
I'm gonna go with Kim Gordon.
All right, let's check that answer. Kim Gordon. Do we have a Kim Gordon? Yes, and that means you're our new Wordzoid champion, Trish. Dale, tell Trish what she's won. Trish, you've won a copy of 2 stories, a memoir of faith and mental illness. Handwritten, hand-drawn, and handed to you by artist and writer Joshua Kemble. But wait, that's not all. You've also won a copy of Jacob's Apartment, the story of a doomed romance. What happens when you take Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and put it in a blender with Ghost World? You get Jacob's Apartment, written and illustrated by Joshua Kemble. Trish, thank you for playing Wordzoid.
All right, great job, Trish.
I was told I was gonna get a lifetime supply of paper towels.
I love those things. Ads
Yeah.
are made. What would I do? Well, I definitely want to eventually convert the garage into a like studio space for similar reasons because I can kind of be up a little later and not bug people. And also I could
Yeah, I
like
guess-
soundproof it and stuff. So
I guess where you are, you don't really need a garage for cars.
no,
Like it's probably nice to have, but it's not like. Do you guys park your car in the garage?
yeah,
Oh,
we
yeah.
use our garage mostly for like storage and stuff.
Right.
Which is always a danger because that usually means that you have a bunch of family members that are like, we don't know where to put this. Can we keep it in your garage? And it's like you end up just accruing like 50 beds. And it's just,
Yeah.
there was a point where we had like 10 mattresses in our garage because we had people who were like, can you hang on to this? We're like in transition. And then like, it was like 6 years later, we finally just trashed all the mattresses. We were like, I can't have a pile of mattresses.
And no one ever noticed or said anything.
Yeah, they just forgot, like, or
Right.
just like it's like a nice little mattress disposal area. Yeah,
My when my grandparents died, my dad's siblings were all like, "All right, let's go through the stuff and keep what we want and get rid of the rest." And a couple of his sisters were like not ready to let go, and so
no.
they stored like their entire 56-year marriage worth of stuff
Yeah.
in his garage for years. And then he finally was just like, guys, this is dumb. Like,
Yeah.
no one has come to visit this stuff. It's just stuff. Like,
Yeah.
so we're getting rid of it. Anyway.
One of the hard that is one of the weird things about let's get dark, Corey. Never
Yeah.
taught me. But I always do find that weird because, a lot of people spend a lot of time accruing a lot of stuff, and it's
Yeah.
like, usually when somebody passes, like most of that stuff's in like a landfill. It's wild.
Or most of it, I think most of it ends up in maybe not a landfill, but most of it ends up in like thrift stores and stuff.
Yeah,
Antique shops.
yeah.
So
Some of it, though, is great.
Oh, yeah.
It's good to have heirlooms. I'm a sentimental guy, so I think of the two. Like, my wife is more of the person. Like, when I die, all my stuff is gone. She doesn't care, But she's like that with everything. She's just not really sentimental with like objects or things, which is actually probably a really good thing, probably a really healthy thing. I'm more of like a hoarder, sentimental type, but I'm not a dangerous hoarder, except with guitars. But I don't.
20 guitars is so many guitars because you used to have like 3.
Yeah,
Like pretty recently you had 3.
I know.
I mean, you kept saying, "Oh, I got this one and I got this one," and I wasn't paying attention. But 20 guitars is an impressive amount of guitars.
Well, and to keep in mind, they aren't all like a Gibson. Like
No, I know.
There's I found out about that website Guitars Garden that has like those Firefly guitars, and I ordered one, and this is where it got really bad because it was amazing. It was like it played as good as my Fender or my Gibson, and that's where I got really hooked. Where I was like, "This is ridiculous!" Like,
well, I think if you get off-brand, or no-name guitars, the quality is significantly better.
Nowadays, cheap guitars are surprisingly. If you hunt and you do your research, like there's still cheap guitars that are awful. Like a Glary is a bad guitar.
I mean, if you're picking up a guitar at like a Hastings or a Walmart or something, it's going to be terrible.
Even the bad guitars, though, compared to the bad guitars when we were little, are like a million times better. But those Fireflies, man, they're unbelievable guitars. So
one of these days, I want you to get into a Teton guitar so you can see what I helped build.
I would like to. It is nice. Even Firefly, I got a D28 knockoff, right?
Mm-hmm.
All solid woods.
Back and sides.
Yep, $200 something.
Wow.
And it's like,
so it wasn't a ply.
Nope.
Like a
abalone inlays, like everything. It's like a D28. And
what kind of wood?
Spruce.
How are they able to, that doesn't even make any sense to me.
It's bizarre. And it's like, I've looked carefully at it. It's not like, fake wood or anything. It's like, the bracing is legit. It's like, you look on the inside, it's got beautiful X bracing in there. I'm like, wow, this is how, like the wood itself, like the time to make it, like, I don't understand, but I think it is like, because just the manufacturing's gotten so much better. But that's interesting with the inlays and the binding too of like a classic D28 that they included. Because I'm like, binding still isn't done. Like you can't do binding with like, what are those called? Forgetting what they're called. The thing that like carves wood.
Oh, like a CNC machine?
Yeah, like a CNC machine. That's been the big difference. That's why guitars have been able to be so much better. Is the advent of CNC machines getting better and better, so your manual labor is lower. But you can't CNC binding. Like binding is still done the old way, where they like wrap it with string and all that stuff, especially on acoustics. So it's shocking to me when that can be like affordable and have a good tone.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
Or it just will look good, but like the intonation's awful and it's horribly built, but it's like, no, it looks and sounds great. It's weird.
Yeah.
Shouldn't.
Yeah, that blows
it's dangerous. Because it's like a small enough sum to where I could literally... Like, I need to not... But I do really want a resonator at some point.
Well, like
This is our
I
goal.
just, yeah, it's the same thing with like original art. It's like I keep hitting up these heritage auctions,
Yeah.
and I kind of had to stop recently because I was like, it's like enough to where it's a hit, but
Yeah.
it's not enough to where it's like significant. And it's like, oh, I just like picked up like a 50-year-old original page,
Yeah.
for like $160.
Yeah, it's the
You know, what I mean?
comics
Like,
are a great thing to collect comic pages because you can get them for like accessible prices, and I can definitely see how that could add up because it's like, well, I need another.
well, yeah, and I mean they
Now I have
go up,
this, but I don't have this.
yeah, and they increase in value pretty well. I
Yeah.
mean, like I have Ryan Otley pages that he
Oh,
just
those
like
will be
gave.
ridiculous now that.
Well, and he just gave them to me.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So it's like I was talking to him at a show, and I bought a couple of his pages, and he did this book with Todd McFarlane, and nobody knows about it, and so like his pages weren't selling, and he's like, "Do you want these?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure."
I like
So I
that
have
he
like,
just gave you.
yeah,
That's wild.
yeah. So I mean, Todd McFarlane like wrote the book, I think.
Yeah.
And then he illustrated it, and yeah, it doesn't look good. I mean, the artwork looks good,
Yeah.
but like it's not a book I would read. But like,
I need to
but have-
reread.
yeah,
I need to reread Spawn because when I was in junior high, that was like my favorite comic.
dude, it's hard to get through.
But I'm guessing it's not that great.
It doesn't hold up.
Yeah.
It's fine. It is. It's like. It's like watching like a Sean Connery James Bond, where you're like, oh, it's kind of a funny artifact of that era, like just
Yeah.
like, the like latent sexism that just everybody accepted. Like, you're just like, oh yeah, I forgot that like everybody was just fine with that. That was, and you kind of look at like early Spawn, and you're just like, yeah, this is a good artifact of like 90s comics. Just
Yeah.
feels like 90s comics.
Yeah. Probably perfect
It's-
for a junior high boy.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's
Yeah.
excellent for what it is,
Yeah.
But like, you get into the stuff that, came out in like 2005 to 2015 and
Yeah.
from Image, and it's just like, it's hard to touch that stuff because it's so well written and drawn.
Well, that's the thing. There was just this dip, and I know there's people who are really nostalgic for those, like, Image comics and stuff, and the early ones, and
Yeah.
and I can see why. There's like an aesthetic to it where it's like a lot
Sure.
of pinups and really cool spikes and darkness and stuff like that. But yeah, I think writing really came back. It's funny too because the writing got so bad, I kind of tuned out of mainstream comics very shortly after because I was like, I started reading really good written comics and being like,
Yeah.
why am I buying these like superhero things? Because they're all terrible and there's like a bunch of good stuff in the indie world, right? But that
Yeah.
whole time I started getting really deeply into indies and like Chris Ware and stuff like that. It's like, meanwhile, there's like this giant resurgence of Image books that are like legitimately great, like a lot of them superhero books, and they're great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they brought back like really solid writing. Well, that's funny because now that you say that about Spider-Man, I haven't reread those issues of Spider-Man in a long time. I do kind of wonder, do they hold up, or is it kind of like?
So every time I
They
try to
seem
read,
so deep as a kid,
well, every time I try to read Spider-Man now, I'm just like, it just sounds like a whiny teenager.
Yeah,
you're
it's
like,
okay, your uncle died, dude. Whatever.
yeah, but it's also he's
Welcome
also
to the
like
club all
he's also
around.
lamenting, like that's a legitimate,
Yeah.
thing. He's also lamenting just other things where you're just like, relax. It's like
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I don't, I'm in love with Mary
balance
Jane
in a
Watson and
relationship.
she doesn't know I exist, and it's
Yeah.
just so much unrelatable stuff.
Yeah.
It's fine, but
Yeah.
I every time I try to read it, it's like I'm not angsty anymore. So
Yeah.
it's hard.
So I've heard that the Miles Morales stuff is really good though. From
yeah, it's fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
Maddox and I are reading Miles Morales, It's fun. Um, and actually, like a Gwen,
Spider
Spider
Gwen?
Gwen is good. Yeah,
Dude, I've heard that from a lot of people that it's like legitimately pretty good, you know.
yeah. It's colored really well. It's a little bit muddled in the beginning on like it took them a bit to like get their feet underneath them because they
Yeah.
sort of fast forwarded through some fairly significant things just because we were introduced to the character as like an alternate dimension.
Yeah.
So it's not like we get like an origin story or whatever,
Yeah.
which is fine. I don't care about origin stories that much, um, but like she kills Peter Parker because he turned into the lizard because she got these spider powers and he felt really inadequate, and so he started going all mad scientist and attacked a bunch of people as the lizard, and she fought him and he died.
Oh,
And,
interesting.
and so she's just racked with guilt for killing her love interest who had turned into a villain. Um, and it's an interesting. So instead of having the whole, my uncle died thing, it's like
Yeah.
I went too hard and killed my boyfriend. You know,
Wild.
who turned evil out of jealousy for my superpowers or whatever. And then she
Crazy.
actually her story arc with the alien symbiote is pretty
Oh, she
interesting.
has an alien costume too.
Currently in the comics, her costume is a version of the symbiote,
Okay.
but she is made of tiny spiders now.
Okay.
And so instead of having like tendrils and stuff like that, it's like a living group of symbiote spiders, and she can send them out to like spy and kind of communicate with them remotely, so that she's got these little literal bugs that can kind of go out.
Sounds kind of fun.
It's cool, but also she's constantly being eaten alive
Oh,
because
weird.
because
By
she's
spiders?
not by her symbiote spiders because she's not
That's
giving into the venom situation, which is like killing and eating people,
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a running gag, but she is just constantly eating corn dogs.
Oh, okay. To
to-
keep them at
to-
bay.
Yeah, to keep them at bay. So
That's
it's just
funny.
like this constant influx of like crappy street food. Anyway, it's good. It's for like a Marvel comic, it's a fun,
Yeah.
it's a more fun one.
That's cool. I
And-
haven't
and
been able to
Miles-
read a comic in a long time.
Miles Morales is hit or miss depending on he's got a couple different titles, and some of them are like they're like made for 6-year-olds,
Yeah.
and others are just like straight comics, like all ages still, but just like more like teenage.
Oh, dude, I don't know if you've seen this. So, there was like a Christmas special Batman that we watched. It's like an animation, but it was like Batman's kid,
Damien?
and it is so good. It was so
Is it-
good.
Is it Damien, the grandson of Ra's al Ghul?
No, I think it's actually Batman's kid in this like
Right. No, in the comic, Tala al Ghul, who's
Okay.
Raz's daughter, tricks Bruce into sleeping with her, and they have a kid named Damien who becomes Robin.
Okay, that might have been it. But I know, like, in this, he's dressed as Batman. He's like a baby Batman kind of character.
Hold on, I gotta look this up.
You just have to look it up, like Batman Christmas special, Bat Kid kind of thing. It was so good. The animation was really good. I was just really impressed. I was like, wow, this is actually pretty legit. Very strange.
Is
He
it
has like
Mary?
a costume that the bat like talks to him as like his dad. It's really weird. It's weird. But I was surprised because I was like, wow, this is actually like really good.
Does it kind of look like a goofy Bruce Timm style?
It's like very much like if you ever saw like Teen Titans, how a lot of those
Yeah.
are drawn. It's kind of like that, but like a little more adult than that. But yeah, it's kind of so it's like a cross between the Teen Titans comics, like the chibi ones,
Yeah.
and Bruce Timm. It's like a weird.
Luke Wilson is Bruce Wayne. That's funny.
Yeah, it's really good. I was shocked.
Huh.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's not like crazy deep, but I was surprised. And the animation's really cool, like the direction and stuff. There's
cool.
sequences in it that are really cool. Where I was like, Corey would be into this, like, just because of the look. When it's, I don't know, they do a lot of really creative stuff. I was surprised.
What is it? Is it streaming on anything right now?
I can't remember what we watched it on. It must have been on Netflix, or yeah, it must have been Netflix because Disney doesn't have DC, so I think it was on Netflix.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, we just saw that around Christmas time. I think I kind of walked in like at the very beginning of it because my wife was watching it.
I haven't even heard of that. That came out last year.
Yeah, I was shocked. I was like, "What is this? This is really cool." Yeah.
Oh, I'm watching the trailer right now. I have seen parts of this.
Yeah. It's wildly done, like, but there's some really inspiring stuff they do with animation in it that I was very surprised by. Like very triplets of Belleville mixed with Batman. It's very strange.
Yeah. Yeah, Damian Wayne is interesting. I'm looking him up. Created by Grant Morrison and Andy Kubert.
Okay. See, I know less about Bat lore because I wasn't a DC kid, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember at the time, there's a reason for that, because a lot of it was like the breaking of the Bat and the 50 Batmans. And
right. Yeah.
It was like right when Death of Superman happened, so I was like kind of checked out of DC because I was like, this is all gimmicky and crappy, you know?
Right.
But there's a lot of good Batman that I totally missed, you know?
Yeah, Damian's interesting. Did you read anything? Did you read like Court of Owls or anything like during the New 52?
I had a friend who forced me to read Court of Owls, and it was a cool storyline.
Yeah.
It was like, you know...
I like that run on it.
Yeah. It's less cool now when people actually, like, probably believe in a literal Court of Owls. You know?
Right.
Conspiracies are just so much less fun now. They need to be...
Right, yeah.
We need to go back to when they were wild and fun.
Have you read any Sean Gordon Murphy Batman?
No, I didn't read any of it. It was
the White Knight?
The White Knight, yeah. No, I didn't, but I saw some of the pages. They're beautiful. Was the writing good?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. It's not billed as an alternate universe because he like intentionally didn't want to make it like an Elseworld story because those don't sell as well, but it's his own take on all the characters. He actually invented a mix of the different Harley Quinns.
Okay.
And Joker. So there's this like Neo Joker where one of the Harley Quinns goes totally nuts and is way more evil than Joker is. It's good and it's well drawn and it's, you know, it's Sean Gordon Murphy, so it's like lots of car chases that are fun and stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure the art's beautiful too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's incredible. His I was really into his indie stuff. Like, you know, like Punk Rock Jesus. And,
yeah, you got me into it. Like you showed me, and again, I haven't really read any of it, but the art is just like mind-boggling. Yeah. Yeah,
his
so
two most recent indie things are so boring.
Really?
Yeah, like I really like. I guess one of them you can't call indie because it's Zorro, so it's an IP, but it's just like it's fine.
Yeah.
You know, but like he did such interesting, groundbreaking stuff early on, and then
his now run on getting the big bucks to do boring properties.
Well, yeah, I mean, even his run on Batman was really good, but no, he did this one. What is that one called? It's like it like to listen to the summary of it sounds like a bad PBS daytime TV show for kids.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a bunch of characters from books that are trying to save books by going into different storylines, and it's called plot
Okay.
holes.
Okay. So it's like the Magic School Bus.
It's like the Magic School Bus does more like physical science stuff. It's more like Word Girl.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Interesting.
and it's again beautiful, but it's just so hard to care about anything that's going on in the story. It's like the concept, I could see why he would want to draw it, because he's got one character that's manga, and he's got one character that's, so he's got all these characters that are like tropes of different art styles and different literary things
Oh, okay.
mixed
So it's
in. So
got some fun. Yeah.
it should be fun, but it's really boring. And then
Yeah.
his take on Zorro was probably interesting for a take on Zorro, but it's also like, I don't really care. Yeah, it just is okay. Plot holes was boring. I don't know. And not everything can be a winner, but his run on Batman was really good. I really like it. He's kind of built this whole like Murphy verse, and it's worth diving into. Like there's real stakes. He has kind of more liberal sensibilities. And so like at one point in time, Joker gets better. Like he starts taking medication and turns back into Jack Napier and runs for like mayor of Gotham, and then just starts accusing Batman of all of this corruption. And you're kind of like, he's not wrong.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not that Bruce Wayne is corrupt per se, but it's like the like
his
wanton
take on it isn't wrong. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the wanton violence, and then he realizes, like Bruce realizes that like he was totally blind to this, but like all of the elites in Gotham were like making millions of dollars off of Batman, because Batman would just trash a neighborhood fighting a supervillain.
Yeah.
And then Bruce Wayne's company would come in and like restructure,
profit.
not profiteer, because they would try to restructure and help everybody in the neighborhood. But then the way that it was being done, like the elites would come in and like purchase the land at like a really depressed rate, and then build it up and sell it at a really higher. And so like there was this like
strangely realistic
Batman cottage industry that was happening with like the destruction of Gotham that continued to just enrich the 1%. And the Joker, who is now a sane, logical politician, is like using that to point out that Batman is a violent vigilante that just destroys personal property all the time.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. So then you have Bruce trying to grapple with like, should I even be Batman? And or whatever.
Oh, I love that. That's great. That's a good twist. If you could write any mainstream superhero, who would you write?
Deadpool's tempting just because you can be really silly,
Yeah, that's true.
But I don't know if I'm funny enough to write Deadpool. But he would be fun. Honestly, Cassandra Cain would be awesome.
Oh, interesting.
Do you know who she is? She's a bat. So she's a Batgirl that was she was adopted at birth by this assassin that, instead of teaching her verbal language, taught her fighting.
Oh, okay.
And the theory is everybody has one natural language, and so she's a mute. That like her natural language is like physical movement.
Oh,
and so she's just this prodigy of violence, and she's a fun character.
That's cool, and you can kind of play with the muteness of that.
Yeah, so she was part of. I'm not too much into the Bat world, but part of the group of Batwomen, like Huntress and Batgirl and Batwoman and the Oracle.
Okay.
She kind of got into that realm for a bit, and she started to sort of learn to talk or something. I mean, at some point in time, it's hard to have a main character that doesn't speak.
Yeah, you could eventually do something like My Fair Lady as a plot for that. You know?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like if you asked me when I was young, I would have definitely said like Spider-Man or whatever, But I
Yeah.
do think like doing one of those like weird outlier characters that was like a huge superhero in like the 40s that like nobody knows now would be a lot more
Yeah.
fun. You know?
yeah,
Kind of like I think Gene Yang was going to do like the Green Hornet or something back in the day.
right.
Something like that would be fun to revamp, I think. Cuz like
I could see you really doing well with Kite Man.
yeah. I think it would be fun to do a hard-boiled thing too. Would be fun, like a hard-boiled detective type thing.
Yeah.
Comedy would be fun too. I really do think after this and two stories, I really do need to make a Victorian jet ski comic because I think that's hilarious. You know what I mean? It's like a fake historical fiction, but it's just stupid like it's stupidly historical fiction where it's like
Oh yeah,
just very ahistorical.
that would be funny.
You kind of figured a way to do that a little bit with your novel, where you're kind of time bending, so you can have all sorts of wacky things.
Mostly futures, wacky futures,
Yeah.
because the past is fixed. But yeah,
But I think it would be fun to have, a past where you just kind of get ahistorical. So it's like,
yeah. That's why
Victorian Jane Austen with Uzis.
Yeah, anytime anybody tries to do something like historical fiction, I always try to convince them to make it just off of reality enough to where you don't have to be perfectly attuned to the facts.
I mean, in reality, at the end of the day, it's never going to be right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I'm trying to be as accurate as I can. So.
Yeah. But I mean, like
inevitably,
Abraham Lincoln,
there's going to be a guy who's like, when Elizabeth's spirit brain, like he'll have something while doing that.
But Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter is actually really historically accurate. Like very, very accurate, except for the vampire hunter part.
Yeah.
But if you read it, there's like a ton of really nuanced things that match up exactly with what actually happened.
He's one of the most documented historical figures because he kept like extensive diaries, so it's
right.
Like everybody knows about his wife's depression and his depression and all sorts of just crazy stuff.
Yeah,
it's interesting, man.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got, the Civil War is one of the more popular wars to get nerdy about as far as historical stuff. It's like very few people are like, oh, let's talk about the Korean War or the War of 1812. It's like, but the Civil War, there's people that still dress up and act that out.
Yeah. That's interesting to me because I don't know. I mean, the Civil War is interesting to me. For me, if I have to be interested in a war, it's always World War II. That's the most fascinating. World War I is mysterious. There's less information about it.
Yeah.
So it's a little more ambiguous. It's less recent, so it's a lot less clear.
I mean, World War II, I think, is probably the closest that we got to comic books historically. It's just true supervillains.
Yeah.
True
evil, true good. Yeah.
Yeah, that you've got the axis of evil. Even some of the allies are just really evil despots.
Yeah.
And
well, even the kind of righteous people in it, like Churchill, horrible person. He's
right.
He's a brilliant leader, but oh my gosh, what a wacko, crazy dude. Any other time in history, I don't know if he would have even earlier in his life, he made a lot of missteps and stuff.
Sure.
So it's interesting to me. That's really fascinating too, where you have figures that are like, FDR and like just these figures that are very strong, very bold,
Yeah.
interesting figures that are not perfect men, but rise to like a righteous cause, and there's no arguing that it wasn't righteous.
Right.
That's the bizarre part.
Well, I mean, it's very much. Well,
It's
but
Mordor,
and then you have like world domination.
Yeah.
You've got genocide. You've got.
Yeah.
I mean, it is weirdly.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we. It's so, and the whole world got swept up into it. Like countries that never would have. Even like
that's the most
talked to each
fascinating-
other, like allied together. Like I don't think Japan and Germany would have in any other situation been like, let's be friends.
Yeah, it's so wild. Yeah, the way the Axis and Allies formed, and to me, it's really interesting how the propaganda spread and how, like,
right.
There's so many things. Because, like, to me, I've told you I'm like obsessed with like creepy cult documentaries.
Mm-hmm.
And there's definitely an element of that.
Well, I mean, you have like the Hitler Hugin,
Just
like you've
wild
got this
stuff.
evil Boy Scout situation that's going on.
Yep.
There's like, it's such a weird, it's such a weird thing.
It's interesting. So to me, that's always forever fascinating, because anytime you focus on one part, you could spend years just kind of reading about, like, and you have dog fights, which is great.
Right.
Probably one of the last wars that'll ever have like that kind of dog fight, first and last,
Yeah.
But that's fascinating, so it's like, I don't know, it's just really interesting. And then science was kind of moving so quickly during that. So it's like,
there's that. And then you have like the Nazis were obsessed with the strangest thing. So they're like stealing artwork and hoarding artwork while they're also like legitimately believing in the occult and trying to use magic. It's like, it's such a weird, truthful situation to look at. Like you look at all the stories that have spawned from that, and you're like, that's plausible. Like Hellboy and stuff. You're like, like I could buy this like secret underground like occult magic system that's going on, or the Raiders of the Lost Ark, or whatever, whatever else. It's just like all of that is like,
because it's like one of those things where the truth is so close to fiction,
right?
It's like it gets stranger than fiction. So there's elements where like the fiction's wild, but then you're like, well, it's not actually that crazy.
Right?
Yeah. I love that. Well, dude,
so
we're getting closer to 2 a.m, and you have kept me company to the point where I probably would have given up a panel earlier, Corey.
Well, I'm glad I could help, or I'm sorry for keeping you, whichever one of those you want to go with.
I got where I actually needed to be today because you hung out. So thank you. You gave me a second line. I would probably keep hanging out till like 4 a.m, but I have to teach tomorrow early.
That is no fun.
Yeah. But thanks for hopping on. Corey, where can people check out your time-bending stories and also the comic that you're currently working on?
Yeah, well, if you want to see the pages that just dropped moments before I got on this live stream, you can go to CoreyKerr.com/rage. And if you want to read a book about what happens when time breaks down, then you can go to CoreyKerr.com/book.
I love it. So. And thanks to everybody who hung out in the chats. Thanks, Corey, for hopping on. And I will see you guys probably. I might try to do this tomorrow. We'll see. But if I do, it'll be at like a weird time. All right.
Yeah, I don't want to keep you longer, but I'm excited to talk to you about school. So.
Yeah. Well, it'll be fun. All right. Have a good one. See you guys. And if you haven't yet, subscribe, hit the bell so you get notifications, and pick up 2 Stories Jacob's Apartment, or check out any of my live streaming, or not live streaming, my music on any music streaming platform. Have a good night, guys. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to crumble!
I'm Joshua Kemble, and welcome to Joshua Kemble's Livestream. I've been a freelance illustrator and graphic designer for over 20 years. I was an art director for 9 years. And when I'm not art directing and working on illustrations and graphic designs, I'm working on comic books and graphic novels, and that's usually what I do during my streams. And while conversations can go all over the place on this stream, from spicy and entertaining to goofy and silly, one thing stays consistent throughout every stream. I'll always be working on art. So pull up a chair, get your art supplies out, and get ready for an entertaining show that'll keep you company while you work on your own personal art projects. This is Joshua Kemble's Art Stream.